Good evening, everyone. We have spent much of this series exploring self-esteem, what it is, where it comes from, and the profound ways it shapes our emotional lives. By now, you might be tempted to believe that high self-esteem is an unqualified good, a psychological vitamin to be taken in the largest possible dose. But the truth, as so often in psychology, is more nuanced. Not all high self-esteem is created equal. Some forms are sturdy and life-giving, others are brittle and destructive. Tonight, we will draw a clear line between the two, explore the tangled relationship between self-esteem and aggression, and ask what it really means to hold a balanced view of oneself. Part 1: Healthy high self-esteem versus narcissism. The critical distinction is accuracy. High self-esteem can mean an honest, realistic appraisal of one's strengths and weaknesses. Or it can mean a narcissistic self-absorption, a conceit that is defensive rather than grounded. The difference lies not in the outward confidence, but in what happens when that confidence is challenged. Consider two women, both turned down after asking someone out. Nadia has healthy high self-esteem. She feels the sting of disappointment. She is human after all, but her internal response is measured. She thinks, that didn't work out and it hurts, but not everyone will be a match. I'm still someone who deserves a loving relationship. She gives herself an evening to feel sad, then returns to her usual activities. Her self-worth is not contingent on one person's acceptance. It is a stable platform, not a fragile pedestal. Now consider Bella, whose high self-esteem is of the narcissistic variety. She receives the same polite rejection and immediately tells her friends that the other person clearly has terrible taste and is probably intimidated by a strong personality. She posts a cryptic message on social media about people who can't handle real confidence. Privately, she obsesses over the rejection, furious that someone dared not to want her. Her self-view is so inflated that rejection is not merely disappointing. It is an unjust attack that must be avenged through denigration. Nadia's self-esteem bends and recovers. Bella shatters and retaliates. Narcissism, as psychologists define it, is excessive self-absorption, a sense of entitlement, and a willingness to exploit others. It represents unrealistically high self-esteem built on sand. Marcus, a regional sales manager, consistently takes credit for his team's successes while blaming them for failures. When his division posts record numbers, he presents the results to the board as his personal achievement, never mentioning the junior associate who worked nights and weekends on the key campaign. When the board rewards him with a bonus, he pockets it all, telling his team that budgets are tight. He feels fully entitled to their labor. Their work belongs to him because he is the leader. His self-absorption is so profound that he genuinely does not see why they should share in the reward. He exploits their efforts to maintain his inflated self-image. Interestingly, despite the cultural obsession with boosting self-esteem, research shows that efforts to raise self-esteem do not improve school or work performance. People with low self-esteem perform just as well as those with high self-esteem. Elena is a software developer with chronically low self-esteem. She constantly worries that her code is not clean enough, that she is slower than her peers, that she might be fired at any moment. Yet her pull requests are meticulously documented, her bug fixes reliable, her system architecture praised in code reviews. In objective performance metrics, she is in the top tier of her department. Her low self-esteem does not impair her actual ability. It simply makes her suffer while she excels. Part 2: The complex relationship between self-esteem and aggression. For decades, a prevailing narrative held that low self-esteem was a root cause of violence. The reasoning seemed intuitive. People who feel worthless lash out. But the evidence is far more mixed. Some studies do find a correlation between low self-esteem and aggression, but it is unclear whether low self-esteem causes aggression, or whether other factors such as low serotonin levels might underlie both. More importantly, a growing body of research points to narcissism, not low self-esteem, as the more dangerous predictor of aggression, particularly in response to ego threats. Let me show you this through two university students, Felix and Amir, both members of the same debate club. After a practice round, an older, highly respected member publicly dismisses their arguments as shallow and poorly researched. The insult is identical. The reactions are worlds apart. Felix has low self-esteem. He immediately flushes with shame. He thinks he's right. I'm not smart enough to be here. I knew it all along. He mumbles an apology and spends the rest of the day avoiding eye contact. That night, he writes a long, angry journal entry fantasizing about proving the critic wrong someday, but he never acts on these thoughts. His aggression is turned inward, self-blame, self-hatred. He quietly quits the club a few weeks later, convinced he doesn't belong. Amir has narcissistic high self-esteem. He feels a jolt of pure rage. He thinks, how dare he humiliate me in front of everyone? That arrogant hack. After the meeting, he corners the senior member in the hallway, his voice shaking with fury, accusing him of jealousy and threatening to make sure everyone knows what a fraud you are. He then launches a campaign of online harassment, posting anonymous insults and spreading a rumor that the senior member had plagiarized past speeches. His aggression is direct, calculated, and entirely externalized. He does not reflect on whether the criticism had any truth. He only cares about destroying the person who made him feel small. Felix and Amir experience the same ego challenge, but Felix's low self-esteem led to withdrawal and self-directed aggression, not outward violence. Amir's narcissism produced a swift, punishing, and sustained aggressive response, driven by the need to protect a grandiose but fragile self-image. This is why many researchers now see narcissism, not low self-esteem, as the more dangerous predictor of aggression, especially in the face of ego threats. It is the threatened egotism model. When an inflated but insecure self-view is punctured, the response can be explosive. This distinction maps onto two very different kinds of people with high self-esteem. The first are quietly self-confident and non-hostile. Raphael, a senior engineer, has just been promoted. He knows he earned it through years of careful work, but he does not crow about it. When colleagues congratulate him, he thanks them and often adds, "I had a great team behind me." He is comfortable acknowledging that others contributed, and he does not feel threatened when a junior engineer proposes a better idea. His self-esteem is a stable platform, not a fragile pedestal, and it does not require constant external reinforcement or the diminishment of others. The second kind are the narcissistic, thin-skinned, arrogant, conceited, with volatile self-esteem. Damien also receives a promotion, but he treats it as long overdue recognition of his superiority. He insists that his new title be used in all communications, even casual emails, and immediately demands a larger office. When a peer offers a suggestion to improve a project, Damien reacts as if he has been insulted. "I didn't get this position by taking advice from people beneath me." His self-esteem is highly volatile. When the CEO later praises another manager, Damien sulks for days, convinced he is being undermined. His arrogance is a brittle shield, and every perceived slight triggers resentment or overt hostility. Narcissism is part of what psychologists call the dark triad of personality, alongside Machiavellianism and psychopathy. And when narcissism is threatened, the aggression can be cold, calculated, and devastating. Malcolm was a senior advisor to a prominent politician. He saw himself as a master strategist, smarter, more ruthless, and more deserving of power than anyone else in the party. When a younger, charismatic rival began gaining favor with the party leadership, Malcolm's ego was threatened deeply. He did not simply campaign harder. Instead, he launched a covert smear operation, planting false rumors of financial misconduct, leaking doctored emails to journalists, orchestrating a whisper campaign that painted the rival as disloyal. The aggression was prolonged and instrumental. The rival eventually withdrew from public life, her reputation in ruins. Malcolm's fragile ego had been restored through cruelty, and he felt not a moment's guilt. He had treated another human being as a threat to be eliminated, exactly the pattern predicted when a narcissistic ego is attacked. This dynamic does not only operate at the individual level. Collective narcissism extends the same fragile grandiosity to entire groups. When a narcissistic group suffers a status loss, the response can be violent. A hardcore fan group of a football club in Eastern Europe, known as the Legion, saw their team as a symbol of national pride and masculine honor. They believed their fans were the most feared and respected in the country. When their team lost a crucial championship match to a longtime rival, the Legion's collective ego was shattered. In the streets after the game, they did not simply mourn. They sought out rival fans, ambushed a small group, and beat several of them with iron bars, leaving 2 men hospitalized. The violence was not about the sport, it was about reclaiming the group's lost status through aggression. Status loss had triggered a communal version of the threatened egotism response. Part 3: The adaptive value of positive self-esteem. Given all this, you might wonder whether we should abandon self-esteem altogether. But that would be a mistake. A positivity bias based on mild positive illusions is psychologically adaptive. People who lack these biases tend toward depression. Elena was laid off from a marketing firm and applied for over 40 positions without success. Despite the mounting rejections, she maintained a slightly exaggerated belief in her own abilities. She told herself, "I have a unique combination of creativity and analytical thinking that companies need. The right role just hasn't found me yet." This positive illusion, seeing herself as a little more exceptional than the market was currently reflecting, kept her motivated. She continued tailoring cover letters, networking, and approaching interviews with energy. Within 4 months, she secured a position that was actually a step up. By contrast, her former colleague Tim, who had a nearly identical CV, interpreted the same rejections with brutal accuracy. He thought, "The market is telling me my skills are average. I'm clearly not as good as I thought. Maybe I should lower my expectations permanently." He stopped applying to roles he truly wanted and settled for a position far below his capabilities. Over time, his mood darkened and he began to exhibit signs of clinical depression. Elena's positive illusions protected her. Tim's absence of them left him vulnerable. However, the line between adaptive optimism and maladaptive delusion is thin. Extreme inflation, narcissism prevents growth. Sophia wrote a manuscript she believed was a work of genius. She told friends, "This will win the Booker. I'm not like other writers, I'm a once-in-a-generation voice." When agents rejected it universally, she raged at the industry, self-published without editing, and promoted it with grandiose claims. It sold fewer than 50 copies. Her narcissistic inflation had prevented the very revision that could have made the book publishable. A more balanced writer would have taken the feedback, improved, and eventually succeeded. Sophia ended up bitter and blocked, convinced the world was simply not ready for her brilliance. Crucially, psychologically healthy people know when to suspend their self-illusions. When important decisions must be made, they shift from optimism to realism. Lena was a successful real estate agent with a well-earned reputation for shrewd negotiation and an almost intuitive sense of property value. She privately believed she was one of the best in the business, a mild positive illusion that served her well. But when it came time to buy her own family's forever home, she did not rely on that intuition. She hired an independent inspector, researched floodplain maps, investigated school catchment projections for the next decade, and even knocked on neighbors' doors to ask about the street. She told her husband, "I know I'm good at this, but this decision is too important to trust my gut alone." Lena was actively suspending her usual professional self-confidence and treating the decision with a level of scrutiny she didn't apply to everyday transactions. She knew that the cost of being wrong demanded realism over self-assurance. What we take with us. So where does this leave us? The evidence is clear. High self-esteem is not a monolith. It can be a quiet, stable confidence, built on an honest appraisal of one's strengths and limitations. Or it can be a narcissistic, defensive grandiosity, hungry for admiration and quick to attack when threatened. The first kind heals, the second kind harms. The relationship between self-esteem and aggression is not a simple story of low self-worth causing violence. Often, it is the fragile, inflated ego that lashes out when its illusions are pierced. Understanding this can change how we think about bullying, political sabotage, even collective violence. And yet, we should not discard self-esteem. A mild, optimistic glow, what psychologists call positive illusions, helps us persist through rejection, take healthy risks, and maintain the motivation to grow. The key is balance, enough positivity to fuel action, enough accuracy to correct course when necessary. So, cultivate a self-esteem that is both sturdy and humble. One that can say, I am worthy without needing to add, and you are not. One that can accept criticism without collapsing, celebrate others without feeling diminished, and when the stakes are high, set aside the warm glow of self-regard in favor of a clear-eyed look at the truth. That is the kind of high self-esteem worth having. Thank you.